strict are you with your brain? Welcome to this edition of Tuesday Talks with Twyla. I recently had this revelation in my group membership. This month, we are talking about creating new beliefs, believing new things. And as I'm doing this work along with my group, I noticed a couple of instances that were in contrast. So, one belief that I was working on I changed in a way that felt more compassionate and nice and like friendly. And then I had a different belief that I had to get more strict about. And I had to tell my brain, no, brain, we're not doing that anymore. So it got me thinking like the different times that I've worked on beliefs or been directing my brain, like how was I doing that and how did it work? So, part of our framework for believing new things, what I have created for the foundation of our first beliefs to change, is that changing a belief can be fast and it can be easy. And so, if you believe that'll be true, it will be true because that's how our world works. What we believe, what we think, creates our results. And so I want it to be quick and easy. I don't want it to be painful. I don't want it to be drawn out. I don't want to have to practice it a ton of times. Now, that doesn't mean I don't practice it at all. It just means it's fast and easy. Now, fast and easy, both those two words are very vague and they're not quantifiable. So it's whatever that means to you, right? Because it's dictated by our thoughts and beliefs about something is what creates our results that are in line with that. So it's what it means to us. So in the one instance, it felt like changing the belief I was able to do with more compassion and more like a light intention. Like I was just looking back through my notes and noticed that I had, I'd basically written down the new beliefs and in a way that was like yeah, I can like it was an idea that was provided by my coach, one of my coaches, and I was like, yeah, I want to believe that instead. It was about procrastination. And we talked about how we just can wear that as a label, as a badge, and then we show up that way. When we believe we're a procrastinator, we procrastinate. And the way this was presented to me, I was like, yeah, I don't want to be that way anymore. I don't want to save things for the last minute. And the alternative is I'm an action taker. I want to be an action taker. I want to plan ahead. I want to get things done ahead of time. And I had written those exact words down. I just found it in my notes right before this recording. And I wrote it a while ago. Like, I don't know how long ago. And I recently had a scenario where I got my stuff done ahead of time. And I was prepared for some comments and some conflict around me believing this and it, kind of coming to fruition. But it happened fairly easily. And I had redirected my mind and I didn't feel like I had to redirect. I decided to take on this new identity of an action taker, someone who gets things done on time. I'm not a procrastinator anymore. That's not who I am. And it felt very easy. And it was like the analogy that I gave earlier today in my membership was like when you have a child and they're like going outside and you're like, oh, please, make sure you shut the door on your way out. And you say it really nice and they listen and that's all that needs to be said. And then there's another time where you have to be very strict and direct or they won't listen to you, like whatever it is. Like, no, you're not, like they've asked you 10 times or maybe two, whatever. No, you're not having a treat right before dinner. Stop asking, right? We say it more stern, we say it more strict. We're done talking about it. Or like they're about to stick their finger in the light socket. That's always the analogy I use. Like, you're going to say it very sternly because you're going to do everything to keep their finger out of the light socket. Now, I don't know that that ever has happened. I just remember that from growing up. But you're going to make sure it doesn't happen. You're going to be stern. And so it got me thinking, like, how are we managing our brain? Because our brain is designed to default to the negative. It's survival mode always. That's what it's designed to do to keep us alive, which we appreciate, right? But when we're doing thought work and belief work, it wants to use the programming that it knows that's efficient and is usually negative because that's what can keep us safe, which doesn't really apply in a lot of these scenarios. like me procrastinating or not isn't a life or death or a danger, or it isn't a survival situation, but my brain's going to err on the negative because of that, right? It just that's how it works. And I know that, and I know that going into it. But it's it's always going to do that, and yet that doesn't serve us. And so I don't always have to be that stern with it, right? And so in the procrastination case, I didn't need to be stern. I just decided to change my mind about it, and it was done. Now I have one example, so we'll see how it goes. I'm sure I'll revisit it again, or something will come up, or something will be said, and I'll entertain taking on that comment as a badge again, and I'll have to maybe do some more work around it. But I had a similar situation with a different, I guess, belief. I don't even like to say that, but it's a thought I'm thinking regularly, which is the definition of a belief, and we believe it's true, which is what creates the results in our life, around being confused, not knowing what to do, and that I don't know, and kind of that lost in confusion that my brain loves. Why? Because I don't do anything when I'm confused. I sit on the couch, right? I conserve energy. It's very, when you think of like the survival brain, it's very in alignment with all of that. So it loves to offer me, you don't know. And if you don't know, don't do anything, right? Don't do anything. And in that case, I've been working on for a while and redirecting my mind. And I noticed that the way I was redirecting it was kind of a lot like I did with the procrastination. Like it was more like compassionate and soft and nice. And this morning I realized I need to tell my brain, we're not doing this anymore. And I was like, whoa, yeah, I've never thought of that. And that is what it needs to hear. We're not doing that anymore. Stop offering that. In a stern way, in a way that I mean business, in a way that we're not doing that anymore. And I want it to be fast and easy. So I'm not going to be like, well, that's okay. We just need to redirect. And, kind of like when when you are dealing with young people and you're like, okay, I just got to tell them over and over that we're not doing that. And for certain things, like I'm not going to tell you more than once not to stick your finger in the light socket, just stay away from there, right? You're going to be very strict and clear and right convicted in your direction for their safety. And so in this case, I guess it's not really for my safety, right? It's kind of for my sanity, but it does not serve me to sit here and think I don't know and then not be productive. I want to be productive. I know what to do. And when I don't, I'll figure it out and I'll do something. I will still be productive, even if I have to figure out what I need to be doing. I'm not going to sit in the I don't know. I'm done with that. I'm not doing that anymore. So stop saying that, brain. Stop offering that. Stop going to that place. We're going to here instead. I'm productive. I manage my time. I organize my time. I know what to do next. I'm going to tell it that's what you're going to think from now on. And I'm going to say it strictly, not nicely, like, hey, I'd like you to go this. I'd like you to go this direction instead. I'd like you to think this way instead. No, I'm done pussyfooting around about this. This is what we're doing. I'm being very stern. I'm being very clear, like drill sergeant direction. Here's the deal, brain. And it occurred to me, I realized this morning that there are times that I talk to myself like that, but not very often. And so then I got to thinking, I wonder if anybody else does. Or if it's ever occurred to you to just tell your brain very strictly what you expect it to do, right? And we know that our brain has default programming, right? We've talked about that a lot. So we understand that's the way it's going to lean, that's the direction it's going to go. And you've probably heard me say an unsupervised brain is like a toddler with a knife. I got that from my coach. It needs constant supervision. But how are we handling and managing what it's doing? And how much are we tolerating kind of that back and forth? And how much are we just saying, no, we're done with that. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not entertaining these thoughts. I'm not indulging in this negative thinking. I'm not going to sit here and wallow in the I don't know or whatever it is for you, right? Whatever that thought is, that story, that belief that you're carrying like an identity, because that is part of like the beliefs about ourselves are our identity. So I was identifying as a procrastinator. I was identifying as someone who doesn't know. And then that impacts our behavior, right? How do I show up in those cases, right? I show up like a procrastinator. I show up like I don't know, which is not showing up at all, right? And so you can see the direct correlation of how all of this is intertwined, right? The thoughts that I think, the beliefs I have about myself and how I show up create the results in my life. And if I don't want it to be that I do everything at the last minute, I have to change that foundational belief. I'm not a procrastinator anymore. I'm an action taker. I get things done on time, ahead of time, always. Like it's non negotiable. It's just who I am now. And I can decide that in an instant. And if you don't believe that, take a look at your past. Find a time when you changed your mind in an instant. You changed a belief in an instant about a person, about a product, about a food. You heard something or learned something and it changed your mind in an instant. So it can be fast and easy. So I decided that that's how I wanted it to be for me, to change beliefs about myself. I don't want to wallow in the in between. And then I noticed this morning with the confusion, I was back wallowing. Like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. When I decide, it's decided. And I was strict and I was telling my brain, and that's it. Right. And so I want to give you permission to do this, to not just be redirecting our brain and not just be suggesting something different, but to be stern with what you want in your life and to believe that it can be fast and easy to direct your brain, to change your beliefs, to be strict with your brain on what you expect. This is what I expect. We don't think this anymore. That's my expectation. And you set that up that way for yourself, right? And then what does your brain do? First of all, your brain listens to you, right? And when you're believing something new, it's going to find you evidence in alignment with that new thing, which is so amazing. It's going to show you in your life, in your world, things that are in alignment with that. And that feeling is so amazing. It's magical. It's like, yes, it's working, right? That worked. And you'll see it, you'll feel it, you'll experience it. And if the difference, the substantial difference between the compassionate redirection and the strict redirection is the difference between it working or it working fast and easy, and use the strict. Now, I don't know that that'll be my go-to, right? I think I'll continue to redirect, but if it doesn't work, I'm not going to do it 10 times, right? I'm going to redirect. And then if that doesn't work, I'm going to get stern and be like, no, we're done with this. And honestly, this morning I was like, how come I never thought of this before? How come I hadn't like got real serious with my brain? Like, no, like seriously, no, this isn't happening, right? I'm not allowing this anymore. And I get to pick. It's my prefrontal cortex. It's my smart brain. I get to decide. I get to direct. And this is how it's going to be. And we're not revisiting this. We're not talking about this anymore. Stop asking, right? Like when the little kids are asking for treats and treats and treats. Or mom, 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 mom. No, right? Just no. I decide, and I decide no. And I decide it with conviction. I decide it with strictness, I guess. I decide it with that commitment of, I want this new thing. I want to believe this instead. I want to think this instead. Because that story that we tell ourselves comes from that foundational belief, right? The story that I tell myself, or the thoughts that I'm thinking about myself, come from those foundational beliefs. So if it's around procrastination and I think I'm a procrastinator, then I'm thinking that I'm saving that for the last minute. I always save it for the last minute, and then I save it for the last minute, right? And when I realized that, I was like, I don't want to save it for the last minute. I hate that. I want to get it done early. I want to be an action taker. I want to plan ahead. I want to have everything done ahead of time. That's who I want to be. I want to be the person that always has everything done and organized well in advance. And I was prepared for my brain's resistance, and I was prepared for comments from my family, because there's always comments about how I save things for the last minute, and oh, we have so much stuff to do, because we always have so much stuff to do yet at the end. Like, there were those comments, and I was prepared for those. And I knew they were going to come, and I thought, I know there isn't that much stuff to get done, because I know how much stuff I've already gotten done. And out of my list, this much is done. So this is all that's left, right? And so I knew that, and it's not my job to change someone else's mind, to convince them that I'm not like that anymore. I didn't say a word. It's like, in my mind, I thought, I know what's left, and it's not that much stuff, and we have plenty of time to do it, because I have all this stuff done. I have these days, I have it all scheduled out and planned out. I know when everything's going to get done, and it's well in advance. I just let that go. I was prepared for all of that, except for a comment from one of my kids. And it was just one of those in passing, one of those things that we can take on that either reinforces the badge that we've taken on from somewhere else, or it becomes that, right? And it surprised me, because I hadn't prepared for that. And I was like, oh, I noticed. It's like, nope. It's like, oh, he thinks the same thing. He thinks the same thing as my husband does. He made a similar comment or alluded to the same thing, that I'm a procrastinator, always save things for the last minute, whatever. And I thought, no, not anymore. That's not who I am. And that's not how I'm showing up like this today, this time, right? And we know our brain works that way. We know that that's going to happen. And when we're ready for that and we're prepared for that, it doesn't have to derail us. It doesn't have to send us spinning and, well, maybe I am still a procrastinator. No, I'm not. I already decided. I changed my mind. And I'm not talking about that anymore. Like, it's done. I'm not working on it. I'm not becoming a non-procrastinator. I'm just not anymore. I'm an action taker now. That's how I think. That's how I show up. That's who I am now. Because that's what that is, right? Those core beliefs are our identity. It's who we are. But they don't have any evidence of that yet. And even I didn't have evidence of that yet. That's okay, right? I'm telling my brain to believe this instead, and then I will create the results, which is how all of this works in the world. Anything that you've ever accomplished or achieved, you believed was possible before you did it. It's how the brain works. And if you didn't believe it was possible, then it didn't happen, right? And there's times where it's like, well, I didn't think that was possible. Well, part of you must have believed it was possible, right? There's got to be that in order for it to become your results. And sometimes that can work in a way where it motivates you in a way that it inspires the action that is in alignment with the results. And so it can work that way too. But understanding that foundational thoughts and beliefs is about ourselves is our identity. It's who we are. And we can decide what that is, and we can change it anytime with compassion or with strictness, with conviction, always with conviction, but sometimes with compassion, and sometimes with just, we're going to be strict and we're just not tolerating this anymore, and we're just done with this. And it's fast and easy. In both cases, it was fast and easy. It's just the way that I talked to myself. Now, that doesn't mean that I was mean to myself, or I was beating myself up, or that I was judging or providing opinions, or self-destructing. Was none of that, right? It was, I'm not thinking that, I'm thinking this, and there's no judgment, there's just no beating yourself up in any of this. It's, I'm not thinking that, I want to think this instead. And that was a nicer, more compassionate way that I talked to myself. And over here, it was just very strict. And that's why I like the example of talking to a child, right? Because you're not being mean to the child by not letting them stick their finger in the light socket. You're not a mean parent. You're a responsible parent. And the stricter you are, the more conviction you have in your voice to make sure they don't do it before you can actually get to them and make sure they don't, right? That's a good thing. It's not mean. It's not, letting them stick their finger in the light socket. That would be mean, right? And so understanding that you're just doing it with conviction. You're just not tolerating anything else. That we're committed to this and we're going to stay the course. We understand where all of the resistance and the conflict and the negative thinking comes from. We understand that our caveman brain, that's how it's designed. We get that, but we're not doing that here. And so we're strict, we're convicted, and you can do it either way. The goal is to create the new belief either way, nicely or strictly, right? And you can use whichever one, and you can use the one that you need, and you can try to start with the compassion and use the strict one if you have to, right? But don't be afraid to be very assertive, maybe that's a better word, with your brain, because it's yours. It's yours to direct in a way that it gets its attention and it listens to you. Because the chances are it's going to revert. It's going to want to revert, and you're going to have to keep redirecting it. Now, if you don't want to do that, you just be like, stop it, right? I'm not doing this 10 times, just like a kid. I'm not telling you no 10 times, stop asking. And so we always have that ability. We always have that control over our mind. But I think sometimes we forget that. And then sometimes we're like, when the brain reverts, we take it as failure. We take it as weakness. We take it as like, well, I guess that just didn't work, right? We kind of give up. That's just how our brain is going to operate. So we know that. We expect it, we're prepared for it, and we know what to do when it does. And it's okay to get a little assertive with our brain and be strict and just say, no, we're not doing that anymore. We're done with that. That's not who I am anymore. It's not who I want to be. And it can be that easy, that fast, and that easy. And know that that's always available to you. And your brain will listen because you're always there with it, right? So don't give up. Don't give in. Don't just kind of resign yourself to, I guess that's the way it's supposed to be. No, it's supposed to be the way you want it to be. And you get to pick what that is, and then you get to create it. And you be strict with your brain to create exactly what you want by telling it what we're going to think instead, what we're going to believe instead. And if you enjoy this work and you're ready to take it deeper, join me in the Success Society. We will be opening the doors soon. If you want to get on the wait list, you can just let me know. We are super excited. I do a monthly topic every month, and it has been so fun to do this work alongside with my group and just experience the different nuances of the changes and how something like this little twist between just being compassionate about it or directing your brain and being strict about it and having permission. And even for me, like not having realized that I hadn't ever been that convicted about it, been that strict about it. And that's available to us. That's the work we do inside the Success Society. So if you're interested, just drop a note and let me know. I would love to have you inside. We have one more week of May left, and then we'll be changing topics in June. So I hope you are having an amazing week. I hope that you notice how compassionate or how strict you are with your brain and implement this so that you can create the change that you want to see in your life. Until next week, I hope you have an amazing week.